what I'm talking about. Why are you running? I'm speaking to you.
I'm not running. I just don't want to argue in front of our
Well, see, it don't matter where we argue, you run.
It matters. It matters.
Sometimes when things get scary, I try to escape the only way I know how.
Yes!
I close my eyes.
Do everything for you. Huh? I'm speaking to you. Get that?
When I close my eyes, I'm somewhere else. A place where I don't have to be afraid. And Benny has all the space in the world. And we're safe. No matter how brave my mom appears, I know that she's scared. She deserves a safe place too. But most of the time, being home feels dangerous. And some nights, the shouting seems endless. It doesn't feel like home at all. I try to stay close in case she needs me, but I have to be careful. She doesn't like me to see certain things. But one day, something changed. We both would have to leave some things behind.
You'll see him again. It's okay.
My mom began to show me that things can change for the better, but that it wouldn't always feel good, and that it wouldn't always be easy. I didn't know where we were going, but I know why we had to leave. It didn't feel right leaving Benny behind, but I trusted my mom. She taught me that new doesn't have to be scary, and we wouldn't have to do it alone. And that there was a safe place for Benny too.
We're gonna get you in a good spot to find a more permanent home.
I haven't gotten a chance to work in like the past 5 years.
Usually go over your previous work experience, right? And then you want to focus on your strong skills. So if you want to think about your past jobs, where you felt confident in.
Okay.
Okay.
I know how to prioritize.
Slowly, I saw my mom
Groups,
change.
great by myself.
We're here to make your interviewing process as smooth as possible.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
And eventually, I felt myself change. My mom looked different now, and our home started to look different too. We didn't know what was ahead of us, but we were together. She says a new beginning will lead to new memories. And although we didn't always get it right, she reminded me that there's always room for sorries. And growth, and celebration. It's been a long time since I saw my mom like that. Things are brighter now. And although I still close my eyes every once in a while, it's not out of fear anymore. I know I'm safe, and she is too.
Hi, everybody. You know, we rehearsed this a couple of times, but this is the first time I saw that video, and I wasn't expecting that. It's an honor to be here. And by watching that video, I hope you get a feel, if you don't know already, how important this topic is. Welcome to the live virtual event hosted by Urban Resource Institute and National Domestic Hotline. Domestic violence and pets, breaking barriers to safety and healing. I'm Steve Dale. I'll be your moderator for today. I'm a certified animal behavior consultant. I write books about pets. I'm on the radio hosting several different radio shows. I'm on television. Typically, I am speaking all over the world about animal behavior related topics. These days from welcome to my office, from this room, or maybe I really get brave and go down the hall and speak from my living room on occasion, but that's all changing. This is the 1/2/3 event that I'm speaking for Urban Resource Institute or moderating a panel. It's one of the great honors of my career because I understand the difference Urban Resource Institute makes, not only for human lives, but for pet lives as well. And that film that we just saw tells it all. The short film you just watched, When I Close My Eyes, was produced by Rising Act Films and Caitlin Scott to showcase one fictional family's struggle with domestic violence. But that fictional family, it's reproduced every single day, multiple times a day, and arguably, and data now is beginning to show this, more times than ever before as a result of the pandemic. With the help of URI's PALS program, fleeing family members along with their cherished pet find a new life of safety and healing and a promising future together. We extend our greatest appreciation to Rising Act Films and Caitlin Scott to salute their vision of advocacy through storytelling. I wouldn't be here telling you a darn thing if it wasn't for PetSmart Charities for providing financial support, which is so important to make this live broadcast even possible to happen today. One of the many great things PetSmart Charities does on a daily basis. So for the next 90 minutes, we'll go quickly. We created a wonderful interactive event page for you, though, where you can comment, engage with your fellow viewers, ask questions. There'll be a poll to take. You can donate to the PALS program if you are so inclined to do so. When the broadcast is over, you can even stay on the events page if you like. You can read comments, you can send comments, you can ask questions and talk to people. Check out all of these features and share your thoughts. How important is this topic? It is so important that U.S. Senator Kristen Gillibrand, who ran for president. You'll recognize her face, and she said, I want input, I want to participate in all of this, and that is exactly what she has done. Here she is.
Hi, I'm Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the virtual summit on domestic violence and pets. I'd like to thank Nathaniel Fields, CEO of the Urban Resource Institute, Katie Ray Jones, CEO of the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and all of the expert panelists here today. The Urban Resource Institute is not only the largest provider of domestic violence shelter services in the country, but the only shelter in New York City that allows survivors and their families to bring their pets with them. My dog Maple is a beloved member of our family and a source of comfort and companionship. For survivors, that comfort and companionship and the knowledge that their pet is safe is crucial. I was proud to co-sponsor the PAWS Act, which is now helping more shelters have the capacity to house and support survivors and their pets. Ensuring access to justice for victims and survivors has always been a priority for me in the U.S. Senate. From fighting to reform the way the military responds to and supports and reports domestic and sexual violence, to advocating for much-needed COVID relief to meet the increased need for domestic and sexual violence services during this pandemic. I believe we have to do everything possible to equip survivors with the support they need to keep their families safe and get on a path to truly thriving. But despite all the progress we've made in empowering survivors to find safety and stability, there is still much more work to be done to achieve a world that is free of violence and abuse. I'm confident that together we can create that world. I wish you all the best for an informative event, and I hope that your work will inspire others to advocate for the most vulnerable in our communities.
Thank you, Senator. And now I'd like to welcome our panelists, truly an incredible group of experts and thought leaders in animal welfare and the domestic violence sector. You can review their detailed bios on the event page. They're each, it says here, extremely accomplished. I can assure you that is an understatement. We invite you to get to know them better, and you can do so in just a few minutes, actually. We'll talk a lot today, so I just want to jump right in. This is the first round. Each panelist will briefly introduce themselves and tell us about their work. Let's begin with Hope Dawson, a very special lady. Hello, Hope. I love your smile.
Steve.
How are you?
I am well, thank you. And I'm so glad that you went after that video because I was right there with you. Like, they said fictional family, but that was my life, you know? So, yikes.
Well, there you go.
Video.
So I happen to know you, but tell us a little about yourself.
Yes, I probably got ahead of the question there.
It's okay.
I am a survivor of domestic violence and a former resident of Urban Resource Institute. I now lend my voice to sharing my story and also helping others to learn how to share their story.
Tell me how the PALS program helped you to ultimately heal, if that is the right word. And I don't mean walking along the sidewalk with your dog saying heal. I don't mean it that way.
She wouldn't listen anyway, but no, the PALS program was something that I honestly was just so shocked that it existed. I couldn't even fathom this type of program was there. So when I found out and I was actually able to have the opportunity to step into it, I again was taken back by how attentive they were, not just to our needs at URI, but the PALS program to what Coco needed, helping us to just be educated as far as how she was affected by the experience and the trauma. We didn't understand. We just thought, you know, she was kind of becoming more aggressive and these types of things. But from day one, we met with Miss Ann. She was our worker. Well, we say Coco's therapist, but
Coco's your dog.
Yes, Coco is my dog. Yes, I have 2 children and then Coco. She's the star, really. Y'all should have had her here. I'm sure if she could sit in this chair, she'd be here speaking for herself. But yes, so Miss Ann came and she was immediately able to let us know what was happening and how to help Coco, right, to become acclimated to being around other people, other pets. And so the amount of help that I received specifically from the PALS program, I cannot even, it's immeasurable. It's immeasurable.
What inspires you or gives you the courage to now be an advocate?
Oh, the courage comes from when you live it. Sometimes, most times, I would think all of the time. In fact, I mean, you know, you can't say all of anything, but you have this thought of why me? Why was this my experience? Because nobody ever just goes into a situation thinking this is where it's going to land, you know, having to walk away from everything that's familiar. And so when I asked myself that question, the answer that I came to is that if I am now able to find the courage, as you say, to use my voice to even help one person to maybe have a facility to go to that wouldn't have been there otherwise, or to be able to use their voice in a way that they didn't know they could, to become empowered, then it was worth it. And so when I asked myself the question of why me, I said it's because you are capable and equipped with the tools needed to help the cause going further so that no one else has to experience what you experienced in the process.
Will you do me a favor?
Of course.
Or let me rephrase that. Will you make me a promise to come back in a couple of minutes?
Oh, absolutely. I disagree. See, that's how much I trust you. Of course, you could have said anything.
You're wonderful. Thank you, Hope.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think courage is indeed the right word. Nat Fields is the CEO of Urban Resource Institute. First of all, Nat, tell me about URI.
Steve, thanks for that warm welcome. And let me back up a little bit. You know, I've known Hope for such a long time, and I am always inspired when she talks. She used the word courage, but you know, she is so inspirational, and I'm so happy has agreed to work with us and continue to inspire so many to find their voice. So, Urban Resource Institute (URI), as you heard from Senator Gillibrand, we're the largest provider of domestic violence shelter services in the country. We have an ability to really serve over 1,200 individuals on any given night in the United States. So this has allowed us over the last 40 years to provide a range of services that are client-centered and trauma-informed in our work with victims of domestic violence and our homeless families. You know, across these programs, we really work from a perspective of prevention, education, and intervention. And when you really think about it, we're working to end domestic and gender-based violence. And on the prevention and intervention side, we do work with students in junior high school and high school. We call this program RAP, Relationship Abuse Prevention Program. Moreover, it's so inspiring because you see young people incorporating language that's consistent with we're not tolerating domestic violence. And that program raises awareness to teachers what domestic violence is, but it also empowers young people to build a positive peer group where they're not going to tolerate abuse. And so when I see that program and I see the staff engaging them, it's so inspiring. And then we work on the other end, where we work with those who do harm in our abusive partner intervention programs. These programs are a little controversial, but if you think about it, an abusive partner will only go on to harm somebody else if you don't hold them accountable and engage them from a cognitive behavioral intervention. And of course, we do a lot of work around economic empowerment. Financial abuse is one of those areas that we need to address so individuals can live a life free of abuse. So our Economic Empowerment Center is just amazing. But I don't want to go on too long. I do want to say that when I talk about the breadth and depth of services, none of this would have been possible without our team. Our team members at URI are amazing. They were able to stay the course during this very difficult time of the pandemic and provide these life-saving services each and every day. So please, all of you, just join me in thanking all of our frontline workers for doing an amazing job during the pandemic. I really applaud them.
I do too, and love the fact that on a nationally televised event, incidentally, Michelle Obama and Mrs. Bush, what's the first lady's name? I can't recall, actually. But she's thanked veterinary professionals as well. And that was wonderful. In 2013, you began the PALS program. What's that about?
So
Laura Bush.
PALS.
Laura Bush. The PALS program. Tell me about that.
Steve, you and I are of a certain age, so I have those opportunities many times. So PALS, People and Animals Living Safely, our PALS program, you know, we launched in 2013. We really, as an organization, we came to understand the needs of victims of domestic violence. There are a lot of risk factors that survivors are grappling with each and every day. And as we started to talk with survivors and we started to embrace the literature, we recognized that the inability to bring your pet with you in shelter was significant. And so we launched PALS. At the time in New York City, now we have a robust, comprehensive approach to ending domestic violence in New York City. But at that time in 2013, not one domestic violence shelter allowed a victim of domestic violence to bring their pet with them when seeking safety. And you're going to hear the data later. You know, many survivors just won't leave their pet behind. So currently, we've been able to scale the PALS with support of our partners in the private and public sector. So we're able, in our 7 domestic violence shelters, we have about 172 apartments dedicated to individuals and pets. And I want to say during the midst of the pandemic in 2020, we welcomed our 400th pet into the PALS program. So just amazing work happening.
It is amazing work, and I know you're passionate about collaboration. We're going to be talking later about all of that. But first, let me bring in Katie Ray Jones to talk to us about the hotline. I've always wanted a hotline. Now there is a hotline for this, and there has been for a while. Can you tell us about your work with that?
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me. Yeah, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is actually commemorating our 25th anniversary this year. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline was created in order to provide confidential services 24/7 to the entire United States and U.S. territories through phone, chat, and now texting services. We also operate a program called Love is Respect, which is a platform for young people to engage to learn more about healthy relationships.
Yeah. How did you become aware of the issue of domestic violence survivors and survivors? They are survivors, really. They just happen to have 4 legs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started working in the field almost 25 years ago, and it was as a young advocate working in the domestic violence field, working in a shelter, as well as a response team that responded to 911 calls with law enforcement, hearing directly from survivors who would ask questions. If I go to shelter, what happens to my dog, my cat, my bird, even, to think through what those strategies would look like, because they were experiencing violence in the home in which at times their pet was also experiencing abuse. So there was a strong correlation there. I'm a strong believer in really just listening to the needs of survivors and creating services that eliminate the barriers for them living a life that is free from violence. And that's really what promoted us to continue to work in our community about resources. We were really fortunate to have a humane society who created temporary shelter inside the humane society so that while someone went to shelter, the pet could stay temporarily at the Humane Society.
Excellent. We'll hear more from you in just a little bit. This broadcast wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for PetSmart Charities. It's just one of the many, 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 many things PetSmart Charities does. Amy Gilbreth is with PetSmart Charities. Amy, tell us about your work at PetSmart Charities and what PetSmart Charities, if I say it too fast, I get in big trouble. PetSmart Charities. That's as good as I get. Tell me what this organization is for those who don't know.
Well, most people probably know PetSmart Charities for our in-store adoption programs across the retail PetSmart stores, and perhaps also for our support of animal welfare organizations and shelters. We have heavily invested over the years in spay-neuter programs, TNR programs, but back in around 2016, we started to see the numbers shift. We realized there was going to be a drastic reduction in intake and an increase in live release outcomes, which is fantastic. But that meant that the population of at-risk pets was shifting from being at risk of euthanasia in the shelter to being at risk because of some circumstance of the household that they lived with, including domestic violence. And at that time, we saw really progressive sheltering organizations starting to engage in community partnerships with DV and other organizations. And then decided that this was an area that we wanted to grant in. And so since then, we've been learning and growing and evolving in this space because we recognize that many people don't want to give up their pets and just need a way to escape a temporary situation together.
PetSmart Charities has always been, and you mentioned this, about helping pets in a position that is to no fault of their own. And certainly that's the case for most animals that land in shelters or rescues. It is no fault of their own. And PetSmart Charities has been doing that for years. I think it's brilliant that now you've said, okay, here's another space in which there are too many pets suffering, no fault of their own, because if there's domestic violence in a home, probably the pets have suffered from that. Beside, PetSmart Charities, to my understanding, is all about the human-animal bond. And that's what this is about. Can you comment on that?
We think that pets and families are more resilient when they can stay together. And so that's why in the last 3 years, we put $1.7 million of funding into domestic violence grant making. We support organizations with everything from making facilities pet friendly to supporting boarding and veterinary resources to supporting pet rental deposits, all the various things that you might need to keep a family together during that critical period. And we're actually reviewing our grants for this year. And so more money and more great work is coming very soon.
Excellent. Well, at the end of the day, to some extent, it is about money. Thank you so much, Amy. And speaking of keeping families, thank you. And speaking of keeping families together, That's really what the Banfield Foundation is all about. Kim Van Syke of the Banfield Foundation. My first question to you is rather simple. For those who do not know, what is the Banfield Foundation?
Hey, Steve. Good to see you, as always.
Thank you.
The Banfield Foundation is a public charity. We are connected with Banfield Pet Hospitals. At our core mission is we really believe pets deserve access to veterinary care, no matter if they have a home or if they're waiting for one. We obviously do that through a lot of different grant programs, but in particular, we focus on disaster relief and temporary shelter, and also working with shelter partners and nonprofit organizations across the country to ensure that veterinary care is both accessible and is affordable. So at the end of the day, we are all about making a better world for pets, and there are a lot of different ways that we do that.
And one of the ways now is to help victims of domestic violence. How are you doing that?
Absolutely. So similar to what Amy had noted, we've always funded domestic violence programs through a different grant program as sort of a subsidiary. But about 2 years ago, we really saw a huge increase in the number of applications coming in to support these types of organizations directly. And as I was personally reading through some of the grant applications, I mean, I think it just hit home for me in a very different way, reading about some of the impact that survivors have gone through. And I've kind of always said, like, once you hear something or see something like this, you can't unhear it or unknow it. And frankly, you have a responsibility to do something about it, because we do believe that pets and people should remain together. And so we create a new grant program called Safer Together. And it really enables shelters to increase capacity to enable veterinary care, temporary boarding, behavior training. In a lot of cases, we also fund staff positions that are dedicated to ensuring that pets get the kind of care and enrichment that they need.
That's absolutely wonderful. We're going to hear more about that in just a little bit. Nancy Blaney has previously been at URI events, as have I. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you again.
Hi, Steve. Great to see you again.
Yes. So talk to us about your work with the Animal Welfare Institute.
Happy to. I do want to thank Nat for inviting me back to be on this panel and to be with such a terrific group of people who are out there doing great work. At the Animal Welfare Institute, this is our 70th anniversary, as a matter of fact. We are all about alleviating the suffering of animals, and also for, really understanding and appreciating the human-animal bond. And of course, that bond is nowhere stronger than it is, with pets and their families. And, 20, 25 years ago, when the research started coming out that was linking domestic violence and animal abuse and child abuse and animal abuse, we started looking at that and realizing that there was a need for responding to the needs of domestic violence survivors who had companion animals. But at that point, there really was very little going on in the domestic violence community that to be able to respond to that, because the research hadn't quite filtered down that far. So we kind of jumped in and started putting coalitions together, started reaching out to the domestic violence community, familiarizing them with the research, and just talking over time. And as time went on, the research just became so compelling, and our efforts were paying off, that there was just this understanding that you see today between our two communities about how important this is and how important it is to respond. So through our policy work, we reach out to do what we can on a number of fronts to help domestic violence who have companion animals. And of course, one of the crowning achievements was the passage of the Pet and Women's Safety Act that established a new grant program, a federal grant program, federal money that provides assistance to these entities who work with domestic violence survivors who have companion animals, to provide a variety of services, whether they're on-site housing or transitional housing services for their pets. And Steve, I do want to make sure everybody out there also understands that the PAWS Act did much more, because it changed laws having to do with stalking, having to do with interstate violation of protection orders, and also with restitution, so that if a stalker is harassing an individual through threats to the pet, that is now covered under federal law. And there's also restitution available for veterinary costs when it's associated with domestic violence. So the Pet and Women's Safety Act had a very broad reach.
Yeah, all incredible work. How are you currently working with domestic violence survivors and pets? Nancy? Okay, she can answer. She can answer that.
Zip code.
I think we can go on to. Did you hear the question, Nancy?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, so how are you currently working with domestic violence survivors and pets?
Oh, there we go. It's kind of three-pronged. One is through our continued policy work. So we're working on working with states on cross-reporting, which is something we can talk about later in a little more depth. We work with the law enforcement and judicial communities to increase awareness, to make sure that animal cruelty is treated as a serious crime. And then through our website, we provide resources, a zip code searchable directory of safe havens, which is everything from co-housing to foster care, and also the resources, directions, and guidance for safety planning.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm sorry about the fact that you've broken up. Breaking up, as they say, is so hard to do. But what's easy for me to do is to introduce Kelly Owens. Kelly Owens. Kelly is representing the entire state of New York, apparently. Hi, Kelly. And actually, what you do is so important, because what you've done is set an example here in New York State of a collaboration between government and private industry, non-for-profit, how everyone can work together.
Yeah, so I'm Kelly Owens. I'm the Executive Director for the New York State Office for the Prevention of Domestic Violence, which is we're the only executive level agency in the country at a state level that deals specifically with domestic violence. We have sister agencies, the Office of Victim Services. You'll see Elizabeth a little bit later in this presentation. And our job is to really look at policy, program, and prevention around the issues of domestic, sexual, and gender-based violence. And you're right, New York is doing innovative work, and we're continuing to look at innovative work that is more survivor-centered, and there couldn't be anything more survivor-centered than really looking at the whole package, and that includes pets.
Okay, so you're leading me perfectly into the next question, because it is an entire package. How did you become aware of that, though, that pets really are a part of all this? After all, not surprising if you think about it, because most people in America, statistically do have a pet.
Yeah, so for me, it's very personal. Even before I started this work, there was a family member who was in an abusive relationship and couldn't leave for a number of reasons when she wanted to, because not only was she suffering from trauma, but her dog was also suffering from the trauma of the abusive relationship, and they couldn't find a place to go that would accept her as well as her dog and the dog's behavior. So for me, even before I started this work, it's been at the forefront of my mind.
So how are you currently working with domestic violence survivors and their pets?
Yeah, OPDV has been doing a lot of work across state agencies and across disciplines, if you will, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be healthcare, and around the issues of animal welfare. And how do we look at this as a holistic answer to domestic violence, and how do we address it as a community? And we've been working with URI, and our other state agency partners have been working with URI to really find solutions across the state.
Wow, it's terrific work, and we're going to hear more about that and more about government collaboration. But now I have the pleasure of welcoming once again Nat Fields, as well as Katie Ray Jones, back to the show to talk about are you ready for this? You are the first to hear this. It's an exciting release of a report and the results of a recent survey. URI partnered with the hotline to conduct a 13-question survey to gather the most extensive and comprehensive national data on how pets affect domestic violence survivors, options, and decision-making. The survey interviewed almost 2,500 individuals across the U.S. who called, who texted, did everything they can, even chatted online for support. The survey focused on how survivors felt about pets in relation to their experiences of abuse, their considerations when seeking safety for themselves and for their pets, and their awareness of resources for survivors with pets needing to escape an abusive situation. This is the first time the hotline conducted a survey on the impact of pets, and you, as I said right now, are the first to hear about it. So Nat and Katie, welcome back to both of you, and I'm excited to hear about this as well.
So Katie, so good to see you, albeit virtually.
Good to see you, Nat.
So Katie, you and I have known each other for some time, and you know that I have this profound admiration for the work that you and your team at the hotline that you're engaged in each and every day. So it was a no-brainer for us at URI when thinking about our work, right? We know our field is still relatively young, and the space that we share with the animal welfare community, where we're trying to reduce risk barriers and risk factors to increase safety, is still even younger. And so part of our work is to inform our work through data. And we recognize the reach of the hotline to really engage in this national survey with over 2,500 participants to gather data so we can analyze and inform our sector. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your confidence in the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The feeling is mutual. As you mentioned, we've known each other a very long time. Our organizations have long history together. And certainly knowing that the hotline does serve the entire United States and U.S. territories and receives anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 contacts per day, we are certainly positioned uniquely to be able to gather direct input from survivors on their experiences, the types of abuse that they're encountering, the resources they're seeking, as well as the barriers that they're encountering in terms of accessing services and breaking free from violence. We've conducted focus surveys in the past, historically, around the economic downturn, gun violence, substance abuse and mental health coercion, to really be able to, as you said, Nat, gather the data to uplift survivor experiences, think about the service system that currently exists and how we can make it really center around the needs of survivors, as well as what policy maybe needs to be enhanced to ensure that it is responsive to the needs of survivors as well. So that's what we did with this survey and really thought about how do we gather the unique experience of survivors as it relates to their pets. Is our pets a barrier to them accessing services? Are there other resources they're needing in order to break free from that relationship?
You know, Katie, Steve talked about this, and you just mentioned this in terms of callers. Now, typically people think about a hotline as just that, a hotline, but you engage survivors differently now.
We do. The hotline, when it launched 25 years ago, was a phone-based service. And I think as we began to think about how we all engage in all kinds of services now, even ordering pizza online, we really wanted to create additional platforms of which people could engage in services that may be more safe. So an online chat or texting an advocate may be a more private manner in which to engage in services because their partner might be in close proximity, listening. We've had a lot of college students who've said their roommates are nearby, and if they can chat or text with an advocate, they can get information in a more safe, private, secure way.
So we're going to bring up the data slide by slide, and we're not going to go through all 60 pages. We're going to highlight some of the significant aspects of the report and share our thoughts about it. We are encouraging you on your free Saturday night to pull out the report and read it page to page. So let's get into the data a little bit here. So one of the key statistics, and we recognize that pets are part of the family and provide emotional support, but we weren't overly surprised, but 97% of our respondents said that keeping their pets with them is an important factor in deciding whether or not to seek shelter. And back in 2013, we believe that was true, that we heard from survivors. And a very quick story, we had a survivor, again, when we went around to understand the issue more deeply, we had a survivor, and let's call her Liz to protect her confidentiality. She had a cat who she loved called Chowder. And her abusive partner would use chowder to manipulate her, right? That's what domestic violence is, a person in an intimate partner relationship or familiar relationship using a variety of negative tactics to maintain power and control. So chowder became this beloved living being. And every time she went out, he would call, you better get home, you better come back home, I'm gonna hurt Chowder if you don't come back home. And one time she was out and she was ignoring his call. He kept calling, so she picked up, he said, if you're not back here in 10 minutes, I'm gonna hurt Chowder. And as she listened to the phone, he said, if you're not back here, I'm gonna put Chowder, and this is shocking, but this is a true story. I'm gonna put Chowder in the microwave. And she heard the microwave door open. And he said, you better get back here. You better get back here right now. She heard the microwave door close and turn on. Of course, she rushed back home and she was so happy that Chowder was still alive. But that prompted her, the love for her pet, to leave that abusive situation, right? Real stories. And that's what, in hearing those stories, we launched PAL. So this stat at the time, we heard from survivors, very important, but this data really brings it alive in terms of the national statistic. Let's talk about some of the other findings. Let's bring up the next slide. Katie, maybe you can talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's compelling, when we hear a story like Chowder or Coco, and we think about those experiences. And unfortunately, what this survey really illustrates is there are common themes amongst survivors who are experiencing similarities around the power and control dynamics that exist in their relationship and how their pets are a part of that. And so I think it's, as we think about the family dynamic and redefining family, isn't the human beings, but also the pets that are in that home who may need treatment and services as well. So as we see here, with nearly 2,500 people responding to the survey, 50% indicated that they would not consider shelter if they had to leave their pet behind. So that's really incredible, because as we think about the PALS program and what unique situations might need to exist across our country to remove this barrier, it may not be exactly like the PALS program, but as I mentioned earlier, the Humane Society creating space in their shelter for animals to be temporarily. Anything we can creatively think about to increase access to services will be critically important as we think about services for the future.
Great. And we're going to go to our next finding. Katie, maybe this one too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is really compelling data here, maybe hard to read. So take a moment to breathe as you read through it. But we're seeing that 48% were worried that their abusive partner would harm or kill their pets, while 37% reported that the abusive partner had already threatened to harm or kill their pet. With that being said, as we look at that number, 29%, if we translate that to number of respondents, we're looking at 725 people said their pet had already been harmed or killed. I mean, that is really shocking data that we're hearing directly from survivors. And so we really want to think about treating the whole family. Again, sorry to be redundant, but this is about looking at the family and knowing that also the impact of the trauma. Hope mentioned it earlier about the behavior changes in Coco, that it does really impact the animals, that even if they're in the home and you find a place to go, they may have behavioral issues that make possibly screening them out. And so we want to be able to work with the animal welfare community as well to ensure there's a deep understanding of what's happening in that home so that we can create paths for safety for everyone.
This next slide, sometimes or me think that people are sharing data and information as you are. The data, the survey illuminated this reality that over 72% of respondents were not aware that some domestic violence shelters accept pets. And we know that about 10% or 250 shelters do accept pets. Awareness, awareness, awareness. We're going to spend some time with our panelists picking up on this issue. What do we need to do? This is so urgent to raise awareness amongst DV providers about the availability of resources. And we're going to talk more, of course, than just providers, this whole ecosystem that we're going to discuss a little more. Awareness, awareness, awareness. We're going to spend some time as a panel talking about it. Katie, so good to do this part with you. We're going to invite Steve Dale back into the discussion so the rest of our colleagues can get into this too.
Thank you very much, Nat. I will do that. I'll bring everyone back in a moment. Purina has been saying for years it's all about keeping families together, keeping people and pets together. And it turns out they've been right for all those years. I have a quick story to tell about Lucille Ball. What? How does that have anything to do with this? I'll explain. So it turns out I actually knew Lucille Ball. I really did. And online, I happened to see that a woman by the name of Julia Arnaz Massey. It's such a tragic story that her daughter died at such a young age of breast cancer. Julia Arnaz Massey's father, Desi Arnaz Jr., grandfather, Desi Arnaz, grandmother, Lucille Ball. And I thought on one of my radio shows, she wants to get this messaging across about breast cancer so badly, about early diagnosis. And I thought, okay, I would love to have her on the radio to talk about it. So I IM'd her, instant messaged her on Facebook. And she instantly responded. And as she's responding, we're talking back and forth about when I would have her on the radio and all that. She said, Steve Dale, aren't you moderating this thing for Urban Resource Institute? I just signed up for it. Is that you? Is that the same Steve Dale? I said, yes. As it happens, many years ago, she was a victim herself of domestic violence. And her pets mean everything to her. And she, again, instant messaged me about wanting to become more involved with Urban Resource Institute, or maybe to set up something similar. She lives in Connecticut, where she lives. And I hope that you are so inclined, so motivated to do something in your community. And after all of this conversation, to step up, to do something, and to contact Urban Resource Institute to get that done. With that, I want to bring our entire panel back with us to talk about much of what has been just spoken about here, about making a difference. And we begin with Hope Dawson. Hope, from your perspective, and you sit where none of us sit here, from your perspective, what would you do first to meet these challenges?
I first want to say I love that story you just told, because I feel like that honestly leads me to my first response. It's a matter of destigmatizing what a survivor looks like. And you never know. Like I said earlier, you don't know that it's going to hit your front doorstep. You didn't know that a friend that you were reaching out to had experienced this and had this connection. Really, once we begin to see that, I mean, in all trauma, not just domestic violence, right? All trauma, we are much more connected than we are apart. Then I feel like there is a measure of empathy and understanding and compassion that comes with that we desperately need. And so while we're becoming aware, right, of the need for this particular type of thing, I think we also must be aware of our perspective of who is actually going to benefit from that, because my response will be society as a whole.
Yes, well put, well put. Nancy Blaney, from your perspective, you worked with public officials, good, bad, or otherwise, you did it. And you got it done. The PAUSE Act is now passed. And yay! So with working with these public officials, is there a question of awareness? I mean, obviously the ones that you worked with ended up knowing about all of the topics we're talking about regarding domestic violence and pets. At the very beginning, did they? And did you find that most public officials really just simply aren't aware? And it's not their fault. They can't solve a problem if they're not aware of it.
Well, you put your finger on it there, Steve, that you can't solve a problem you're not aware of. And for me, awareness is kind of the linchpin of everything. It's the fountainhead from which everything else flows. If you don't have awareness, you can't have programs, you can't have funding. But with regard to public officials, it's been an education process, and they have come to see, that the research is really irrefutable. And this survey that URI and the hotline have just come out with will just add so much more data to what we have, and so much more reliable data, actually interviewing, individual survivors. So it has taken a long time to get where we are, to get that level of awareness and appreciation for that connection between domestic violence and animal abuse, and how abusers will use animals to intimidate their victims. So we've been very pleased at not only the PAUSE Act, but other things that are happening on the federal level and the state level to move the ball forward on a number of fronts that are important to domestic violence survivors, such as pet protection orders and cross-reporting.
Amy Gilbreth from PetSmart Charities. I go to PetSmart, and I'm in line, and I check out, and then the person at the register says, do you want to help a local shelter? Is it like an aha moment for people when they read or hear about, no matter how they hear about it, maybe even in the store, about what PetSmart Charities is doing with domestic violence? You're now a huge conduit, potentially, of information, and it turns out PetSmart Charities is also a huge conduit for support.
Well, interestingly, the link between domestic violence and pets is still not as well understood as it needs to be in any population. Amongst our customers, they fully understand why we would support adoptions, why we would support food insecurity for pets, or even access to veterinary care. It takes a little more explanation for them to have the aha moment around domestic violence. And even with our shelter partners, we still find this default to assuming that when a pet comes in with a medical or a behavioral issue, that the pet owner has done something to cause that. What they don't necessarily think about immediately, although we're making progress, is that perhaps there's something going on in the home that endangers the person and the pet. And there are starting to be some really great stories of shelters who realize this and incorporated it into their intake screening, and then are able to intervene and help and connect people and pets to resources. But the awareness is still not there where we need it to be.
So Kim Van Syke, Banfield Foundation, more and more veterinarians are now understanding the role too. All of this is integrated all in one. And if they see a pet where they suspect abuse, in fact, in some states, it's even mandated that they report all of this. As far as the Banfield Foundation is concerned, it kind of pulls like this world together from my perspective, from a very holistic point of view, if you understand maybe where I'm going, Kim.
I do. You know what's really interesting about that, Steve, is that veterinarians, although they are what I would say maybe the most in tune with animals, right? Because they can't tell us what's going on. I feel like veterinarians do a really good job of deciphering that. But even awareness among veterinary profession is very low, really. They understand abuse, but it's hard to figure out in what context that abuse is coming from. And so when we started our Safer Together program, we talked to a bunch of experts in this space, right? Because we're not the experts on domestic violence. We understand veterinary care. And the number one thing they all told us was we need more people to understand the connection and the link between domestic violence and animal abuse. And so we did three things, really. The first was we did a public service announcement with someone most people I hope have heard of, which would be Russell Wilson. So he is a quarterback for Seattle Seahawks. He is a huge pet advocate. His wife is Sierra. They're both deeply involved in domestic violence issues in Seattle, but also the NFL has had their share of them. So we did a PSA with Russell Wilson to talk about the link, nothing more than the link between domestic violence and animal abuse, and how truly no one should have to choose between their own safety and the safety of their family members, including the family pet. That aired more than 8,000 times in the first year and has won a handful of awards for the fact that it did a very good job of raising awareness. The other thing is we partnered with ASPCA as well as Ahimsa House, and we did CE at VMX and at WVC, where we targeted veterinarians so they truly understand what to look for, signs, symptoms, and then give them resources, because frankly, it is a very delicate balance to approach somebody who has a pet in the hospital, whether their abuser's in the room with them or outside the door. It's a sensitive topic. And so we wanted to help them be aware of it, give them tools and resources, and then also generally help educate the greater veterinary profession on how they can be a first-line advocate for pets who are being impacted by abuse.
And that's wonderful. By the way, for those who don't know, VMX and WVC, shorthand for a couple of large veterinary conferences. I'm excited. I'm actually going to VMX in about 2 weeks or so, which is great. I'm ready to go to the airport with the sandwich board sign. Says I'll go anywhere. Katie Ray Jones, question for you. It's all about collaboration. Government collaborating with nonprofits to make a difference for the community in a big way. You've been supportive of that, but how do we spread the word so it goes beyond New York State?
So I think that's for me. That question's for me. So
sorry, Kelly.
That's okay. That's okay. That's all right. So I think everybody's kind of touched on the fact of the interconnectedness of abuse, and how there are signs across disciplines. And this is one where the connection is so clear between pets, abuse, and domestic violence. But I also think one of those things that we have to talk about is the survivor's voice and the ability to give the survivor what they want. And in government, often those funds that we provide to the system have strings attached to them, and they're not very flexible. And we're trying to be more flexible here in New York State to meet a victim's and survivor's needs. But we can't always do that. And, the public-private partnership is an important piece of that to kind of fill in where government funds can't do things. So I think it's the interconnectedness and the ability to be more flexible with our funding to meet survivors where they're at and not where the system is at.
Now, Katie, I really do have a question for you. Sorry. So, Katie, how do we get people to be to the point where hope eventually got to? Where they have the courage to even, and courage, I don't know if that's the right word or not, it might be, to call that hotline, or to even approach, we talked about veterinary medicine. I think hairdressers and veterinarians are number one and number two, truly, when it comes to people giving personal information that has nothing to do with their haircut and nothing to do with the dog or cat. Yet, they hear these stories. What is most motivational for someone to tell that story to someone who can help, or to call a hotline?
Well, certainly, stories like hope is certainly compelling, and I think that is really where courage, as you said, Steve, is absolutely correct. I think oftentimes when we think about a survivor of domestic violence, we have imagery in our head that is not empowering. But survivors are living really challenging lives every single day, and they are relying on their inner strength and courage and hope to get them through the next day. So it is really important that when they are ready to make that step, to imagine a different life for themselves, for their family, that the resources exist to make that possible. We know that 1 in 4 women, 1 in 7 men will experience physical violence in their lifetime by an intimate partner. So it's nearly impossible for us to be walking about the world and thinking, I'm not being touched by that some way, somehow. It just means probably someone is suffering in silence. So being able to really support and really, as Hope said, and we heard Kelly say, recognize everybody's situation is unique. There is not a cookie cutter approach to how to solve and help someone break free from a relationship, that we need to be ready as communities to think outside the box, to help someone re-envision a life that's different from what they've known for a very long time.
Thank you. Nat Fields, you've been the leader in this area for a long time, a leader in the nation, actually. What is there that we've missed in this panel talking about?
So listen, this is a very well-informed group of individuals, so not much has been missed. I do think that when we start to think about awareness, from this sort of survivor-centered perspective, it's really engaging all folks in this ecosystem, right? So leading and hearing the survivor's voice, as Hope has done so well today, but it's about the animal welfare community, the domestic violence community, the veterinary community, the courts, the criminal justice, the health and hospitals, coming together, I should say, and working to really provide information and services to allow us to end domestic violence. We're going to talk about also some other things later in the panel, Steve, not to lead in too much, around not just awareness and this sort of community response I just talked about, but around funding. What's it going to really take for us to move forward?
Well, the reality is funding has a lot to do with so many things, including this topic, of course. That's no surprise. Thank you so much. What a great group of panelists, but don't go anywhere because you're all coming back. So you're not excused quite yet. We're now going to introduce two friends of mine. One very good friend of mine from Purina and also the ASPCA. Lori Westhoff is the public relations strategist with Purina, and Colleen Doherty is the Senior Director of Community Engagement at the ASPCA. We're excited to have them join us today and talk about their work and their feelings about domestic violence survivors and pets. And they have questions that they're going to ask first. We begin with Lori.
This is such an important topic and one that's so close to our hearts at Purina. So thank you so much for inviting me to join. Our work in this area began almost a decade ago with a light bulb moment after hearing about the struggles of survivors with pets in leaving their abusers. And like all of you, we know that pets are family. So we pledged our support for the early efforts of URI as they really began their incredible journey to become the model for pet-friendly survivor services. Over the years, our work has taken us from being really supporters to advocates. And in 2019, we launched the Purple Leash Project alongside our nonprofit partner, Red Rover, to really help elevate this issue at a national level, to drive awareness and ultimately, and most importantly, reach survivors across the country. And we do that in a few different ways. We provide grants to shelters to become pet friendly. We offer on-the-ground support to shelters in their various stages of their own pet friendly journeys. And we also provide support direct to survivors as well. So today we've invested more than $1 million through the Purple Leash Project. But most importantly, we've linked arms with incredible organizations, including several on the panel, to really help drive change at a federal level. So as we know, there is so much work to do in this area and so much opportunity to work together to really continue to make progress. So my question to the panel is this. As we're all collectively working to drive progress and really change in this area, how do public-private sector partnerships need to evolve to accelerate the acceptance of pets in their survivor services space and really provide a more holistic level of support to survivors with pets and the incredible organizations that serve them?
Hi, I'm Colleen Doherty from the ASPCA. I'm the Senior Director of the Community Engagement Program. No one should have to choose between leaving an abusive situation and ensuring their family and pets' safety. This is why the Urban Resource Institute's program is so vital to the well-being of pets and families. The ASPCA is proud to work alongside URI to help keep families together and provide access to critical services such as veterinary care for residents. Working together ensures that families can leave abusive situations and do not have to fear for their cherished pets and their families. We all rely on our pets for comfort and support, and they depend on us for the same. So any crisis that separates people from their animals needs to be handled and addressed decisively, and Urban Resource Institute is doing just that. I'd like to pose the following question to the panel. What resources are available for organizations that are interested in getting a program started like URI Pals?
Thank you, Colleen. So as Nat reminded me, I'm of a certain age, apparently, where I don't remember things. So I am going to repeat Lori's question. As we collectively work to drive progress, to change in this area, how do private, public sector partnerships need to evolve to accelerate acceptance of pets in their survivor services space and provide a more holistic level of support to survivors with pets and the incredible organizations that serve them? Amy, I'm going to throw that question to you first.
Gosh, this is actually a big challenge because, we live in a world where the demand for support and services outstrips the supply of funding, the available beds, the expertise. And so the only way we are going to be able to make meaningful progress here is to work together and to figure out who can bring which piece to the puzzle. Animal welfare organizations understand pets, they understand housing pets, there are things that they can contribute. Domestic violence organizations understand the needs of survivors and trauma-informed services. We have to get more collaboration going and get funding from as many sources as we can if we're going to have a chance of really moving this from a place where only 10% of shelters and a very small number of victims are able to get the help that they need with their pets to the place we'd all like to see, where that is an option for everyone whenever they need it.
So Kelly, I want to ask you the same question. Also, without knocking the community I live in Chicago. That's a pretty big city, right? Yet we have zero beds for domestic violence victims with pets. How do we change that? I don't mean in Chicago, but I mean at a greater level.
I think that, one of the things that we're looking at here in New York is, the funding across funding streams as far as federal and state funds. And what are the strings that we put on those funds that are there that we can take off in the state of New York, but also understanding what federal strings are tied to that. And after we do that, and how we do that is also engaging with the survivor and the provider community to understand what are the needs and what funding is being met by those needs, and how can we as government help explain to the community the need to invest in the solutions together, and find solutions not only from funding, but policy and accountability and all of those things. We've often thought about domestic violence in this little bubble, and it's not a bubble, and it permeates so much of what is going on in society and how we interact together. So those are my thoughts.
No, it's not a bubble at all, and thank you very much. I want to get to Colleen's question from the ASPCA. What resources are available for organizations that are interested in getting a program started, like URI Pals Kim with Banfield?
Yeah, great question. So, I think first and foremost, there's, of course, a lot of organizations that are funding, right? Many of us here on this call. I think one thing that's really become apparent to me and to my team as we review applications is that when organizations want to start programs, I think sometimes maybe they want to start at being where URI is, right? And not everybody can have a Nat Fields and not everybody can be a URI, right? But there are all kinds of varying options that can exist to get started and to start making space available. So what I would say is, there's different models, right? Whether it's co-living or whether it's boarding or foster or working with a local animal shelter like Wisconsin Humane has a great program. I think what people need to do is start with what's reasonable and what's rational in order to meet the greatest immediate need. And so sometimes we'll see applications from an organization that has never funded in the space before, but they want $500,000 to build a bricks and mortar, shelter. And that's probably a couple years out and probably a little aggressive. So what I would say is speak with the experts who are doing this, right? Like Nat and team, incredible experts in this space, folks at a Himza House and, folks at Shade Tree in Nevada and Wisconsin Humane. There's so many different models, but people have to start with what is needed first, which is getting people and pets out safely, out together, right? So focus on that in whatever way you can do that first, then move towards what maybe is aspirational. So I think that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. I think there's lots of best practice and smart people in the space. And I would suggest that people start with having conversations, learn how to meet the needs quickly, effectively, efficiently. And, ideally, it's all about keeping pets and people together. Do what you need to do to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Well, very well spoken, Kim. But you heard Kim say Nat Fields. Not everyone can have a Nat Fields. So I'm going to ask Nat Fields about Nat Fields and what can be done.
Well, listen, I think many things are being done, and we've talked about a variety of models. Our model allows us to be able to work with survivors and their pets. And we're so thankful to entities like New York State Office for Victim Services, who allowed us through their grant to provide technical assistance and training to crime victims. So we're able across the state to talk about the importance, looking at the data, the lived experience, and influence those individuals to do more in the space. Our model is pretty, right? Where if we accept pets artifact, then we understand that they also go through and experience abuse and effects of trauma, right? And the same thing that people will need, pets will need. So there's this parallel process, right? The idea of being able to, on the human side, I need to escape violence in order to increase my safety. So that means a safe shelter. I need basic needs of food and I may have been injured, so I may need vet care. And so we do the same thing on the animal welfare side. And we're so fortunate through our support, through many of our partners, where we have animal welfare experts working directly in shelter with our team. And we keep our survivors at the center, right? They're experts on their own lives. And this team approach, domestic violence experts, animal welfare experts, working from a client-centered trauma-informed model, working to help the family, all the family members, to include pets, heal together so they can thrive. And that's a unique model. The thing I want to say, like Kim said, it's not the only model. We want to be able to work with individuals with the resources that they do have. So if you're calling the hotline needs to be trained up, and they are, but they need additional funding to be able to say, hey, I can provide you information right here and now where there's a service that can meet your needs. It may be a domestic violence shelter in Utah that may not be able to take in an animal, but they can foster an animal through a relationship with an animal welfare community. So real flexible models. And that's what we put forward in our community response model. Really being very nimble to meet the needs of victims of domestic violence and their pets.
All right, Nat, always well-spoken. Thank you so much. We have got a bunch of talking heads here, all experts in the areas of which they are indeed national experts, and honored to have them here. But there's only one person here on this program who has lived the experience. That's Hope Dawson. Her perspective is unique. Her experience is unique, and her ability to communicate with others, awfully important. It's my honor to introduce Hope Dawson.
Hi. So upon leaving URI, and with the encouragement of some of the staff who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, I began to speak. By combining my education, research, and life experiences, I now share my story via trauma-informed storytelling while teaching others how to apply the same techniques and share their story as well. I am honored to have the opportunity today to perform a piece of my story in which I share how I learned through the experiences that led me to URI. It is entitled Mr. Perfect. My devil was not the boogeyman under the bed. He was a sight to behold, and he was perfect. Well, my idea of perfect, at least. See, ever since I was younger, I began to create in my mind what the perfect man would be. My Prince Charming, if you would. He'd be handsome, of course, really handsome. He'd be an artist of some sort because I love the arts. He'd be adventurous, spontaneous, a free spirit like myself. Basically, every Prince Charming in a rom-com who was the best friend turned happily ever after. Simple, right? Wrong. After not encountering this specimen of a man for so long, many years spent attempting to genetically modify some runner-ups, and a heartbreak that shook me to my core, I had given up. I had given all I had and began to accept that maybe, just maybe, my list was a bit faulty. Then seemingly out of nowhere, in walked the devil. Mr. Perfect. He was beautiful and checked every box effortlessly. There was just this one little bitty thing. He was slightly controlling. But hey, Mr. Perfect meets Miss Perfect, and what do you expect? Am I right? No, unfortunately, I couldn't be more wrong. His slightly controlling behavior turned into raising his voice on occasion, then throwing things, then walking closer when he yelled, then aggressive physical touch, and a number of other things. Perfect? Not so much. I say all of this because sometimes we think we know what we want. We think we know what is best for us. And we become so blinded in our pursuit of that thing that we ignore signs that we are headed down a path of destruction. To quote The Alchemist, one of my personal favorite books, by the way, and when you want something, all the universe conspires to help you achieve it. I do believe this. However, I wonder if sometimes we want something so bad that we ignore the signs the universe sends to let us know what we have actually found is a counterfeit. The universe conspires for you to have the real thing authentically. However, you will always be presented with the false positive first. I believe this is the universe's way of seeing if we are truly listening to it or just desperately searching for the things we want. One must shift from our limited perspective of Mr. Perfect versus the boogeyman and begin to listen to the universe in every way. It is in that shift that we find everything that our heart desires. And this may not always look like what your perception of what up should be. For me, it was a shelter. Yes, a shelter. 1,600 miles from my home, designed for families fleeing domestic violence who have pets. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any more specific than that. Thank you, Madam Universe. Initially, however, I didn't know the shelter existed. I had to listen when I woke up one morning and randomly heard, go to New York. Thank you.
You know, Hope, the problem with being virtual is that I really can't hug you. And I think I'm speaking for everyone on this panel. I'm sure I am, as well as everyone, about 1,000 people plus watching this. You are quite incredible. So thank you very much. Not only what you said was beautiful, but what you said, you opened your heart to us, and it's appreciated. I have some special guests that I want to introduce to all of you for this final round. I want to introduce Elizabeth Cronin, Director of the New York State Office of Victim Services. Director Cronin ensures this department faithfully and effectively serves those who have been victimized by violent crimes in New York State. And here she is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Cronin, Director of the New York State Office of Victim Services, and I'm thrilled to be part of this summit regarding domestic violence and the PALS program. OVS is a proud supporter of URI, and we provide funding to the PALS program. In fact, we profiled the PALS program at our 2019 Victim Assistance Provider Conference. I spent 14 years as a special victims prosecutor in New York State, and I saw very clearly the difficulties that arose when domestic violence survivors had nowhere to place their pets. And what we experienced was that these survivors would either refuse to leave the abusive situation or would return to the abuser because they were concerned about their pets. And so we are thrilled that organizations like URI have pioneered how programs can utilize shelters to assist with providing services not only to crime victims, but also to their pets as well. It is critical that we continue to innovate and be creative in how we can serve victims better and how we can do that incorporating all facets and aspects of their life. What we do at OVS is fund a number of programs. About 42% of our funding actually goes to domestic violence programs, and that is for a wide variety of services, including shelters and counseling, court accompaniment, legal assistance. But this is something that has been not provided traditionally in this space. And so I am so happy that organizations like URI have recognized the need for this, and that programs like mine can provide funding to support it. I think what I'd like the panel to talk about is, you know, the state uses a lot of federal funding to support programs like this. And what we want to do is encourage programs to continue innovating and finding new ways to utilize this funding to capture the needs of crime victims, especially when it comes to assisting their pets. I know that organizations like Purina are partnering with URI and others to make sure that they understand what the needs of these victims are. So how do we capitalize on that? How do we do a better job with that? How do we talk about this issue? How do we reach out to other organizations that have not been, that we have not been communicating with in order to find new ways to collaborate and expand our funding? You know, we're doing a good job with our funding to meet a critical need, but I know we can always do better. So that's what I would like to talk with the panel about. Thanks so much. And I would like to just thank my dog, Rudy, for participating in the summit today.
So for Nancy Blaney and Katie Ray Jones, important questions for you. How do we capitalize on partnerships? How do we do a better job at that? How do we talk about this issue and maybe even expand those collaborations to new partners? So for Nancy Blaney and for Katie Ray Jones, those are the questions for you.
Here, y'all.
So for Nancy and Katie, those are the questions for you. Oh, but they're silent answers.
It really happens that in my policy sphere, I'm working with a public-private partnership all the time because it's the public officials and the private us representing members of the public, whom Kim and Amy also reach, who need their awareness raised about this issue and then get them to take action. So that public-private partnership that I engage in every day is between the policymakers and the public, getting them to care and then asking them to contact elected officials to ask them to take the steps in policy and law that will make life better for domestic violence survivors.
And Katie?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the word partnership. There's not an expectation that anyone's going to do it alone or that it's only one person's problem. And so I think even, someone watching right now and listening and saying, well, what could I do? Certainly, we're not hoping that, it would be lovely. Someone says, I'm going to go build a shelter if you have the resources to do it. But even calling your local domestic violence program and seeing what they need in terms of support is an excellent start. To call your local animal shelter and ask what they need is a wonderful start. So it's the baby steps to begin to get educated about the issue, the complexities that survivors face, and being willing to make a difference, because we all have that ability to make a difference.
Indeed. Well, New York State Senator Kevin Parker has wanted to make a difference. He couldn't be here for the live broadcast, but he did have a question for all of you and a comment as well about how important what all of you do happens to be. As an elected official, he says, what I can or government can do is facilitate private-public partnerships that allow flexible and sustainable funding to support victims of domestic violence and their pets to reduce barriers and increase safety. So what can be done? Kelly, we start with you.
Well, I think here first let me give a shout out to Senator Parker, who is a great partner to us here at the Office for the Prevention of Domestic Violence and our sister agencies. I think we are in the process of doing that, and it's really assessing how can we be more innovative, how can we be more survivor centered, how can we use our funds wisely and have impact with the dollars that we do have. And then how can we partner with the provider community and really put the survivor's voice at the center of our work and what that survivor needs when that survivor needs it. I think, for us, we advise both the governor and the legislature, and that's our job to paint the picture for them. And, URI and the hotlines survey certainly will help us do that. And the partnership with all the advocate community will help us do that and get that message and help Senator Parker and the governor and the legislature understand where we need to reimagine this service delivery system.
Nancy, briefly, can you add to that?
Real quickly, with elected officials, I think they have one of the best resources of all at their disposal, which is, let's not call it the bully pulpit, let's call it the persuasion pulpit. So they are the hub about which all things circulate. They can be the catalyst for bringing all kinds of players and stakeholders together to talk about this, to be the catalyst for raising awareness. And also within, their very official duties, looking at the laws and policies that are needed, and maybe the laws and policies that may inadvertently hamstring the ability of domestic violence survivors to get the services that they need.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. And as we think about the future and reflect on going forward, we got to do stuff, right? So what is a call to action that all of you would recommend? Kelly Owens, like it or not, I'm starting with you.
I think my call to action for everybody is to understand the dynamics of domestic violence and that it isn't always just the physical. As we headed into COVID, we had to do a lot of re-education that we thought had happened 20 years ago. And the dynamics of domestic violence are not just those that reach to a level of a crime. So
Fair
for
enough.
me, it's to get everybody to understand that.
Kim, your turn.
Yeah, I would say that just because Banfield Foundation committed $1 million, 2 years ago when we launched this, doesn't mean that you need $1 million to make a difference, right? Money is needed across the board, but there are no societal issues that can be solved by one organization, right? And there is so many pets and people that can use additional dollars. So whether you run an organization or you want to give individually, any amount of money will make a difference, because there is just a huge opportunity to increase the number of pets and people that can escape safely together.
Amy Gilbert?
I would say that we get to lead with supporting and preserving the human-animal bond. That connection between pets and people is magical. And so if we acknowledge that as integral into all the programs and services and think about how we can preserve that across the board, it's as simple as even things that, like thinking about how transportation happens when there's a pet involved. But if you come back to that centering place of pets and people belong together and pets and people are better together, and we use that as our rallying cry, we'll do well.
Indeed. Nancy Blaney?
Well, personally, I have taken so much away from this for my own call to action. I hope nobody noticed how many notes I was taking as everybody was talking. So I need to get back and come up with my own call to action for myself and for the Animal Welfare Institute. But I would also issue a call to action to everyone who is on this program today. Just as Katie said earlier, everyone can do something. And for us, certainly coming from my vantage point, everyone can, send an email to their legislator or their governor when something is coming up that affects domestic violence, affects animal abuse, and make your voice heard that this is important to you and you expect your elected officials to, do the right thing.
Hope Dawson, you certainly have made your voice heard. What do you recommend?
My call to action, I would say for anybody watching, is to discover what you can do. We are all one human body, right, with different parts to play. And so everybody's part might look different, but just figure out what it is that you can do, whether it's a donation, whether it's volunteering time, whether it is just going to vote for something to change, whatever it is that you can do, find that and then do it, not necessarily trying to emulate what someone else is doing because they might be a different body part, For me, it's a matter of sharing my voice and empowering others to share their voice, and also lending a face and a story to an experience that some people might not be so aware of. So that would be my call to action, is to figure out how you can be used and do it.
Sure. Katie Ray Jones?
Yes. I mean, I feel like it's all been beautifully said. And I think that is the piece, right? Like just the fact that how many people signed up for this panel today is incredibly inspirational around the ownership that our community, our society is seeing around the issue of domestic violence and pets. And the future looks incredibly bright, knowing that collectively we can create a world in which everyone has positive, healthy relationships that are free from violence.
Indeed, well put. So my friend Julia Arnaz-Mass wants to get involved in that fields. How does she and people like her get involved no matter where they happen to live?
Well, just to add another yes to Katie's yes, and yes. This has been such a wonderful conversation, right? And we've reached, do things like this, bringing someone with lived experience, the data, people who are compassionate about the work and ending domestic and intimate partner violence, just amazing. And so we've been able to reach people in 41 states and 7 countries. And we start to think about what we've talked about today and what they're going to do about what we talked about today, I'm very hopeful. And so you do have a role. If you're listening to me today and you've listened to the other panelists, take action. You heard a variety of ways you can take action. We know this is going to be a community response to end domestic and gender-based violence. You have a part to do. So the call to action is to learn more about the issue. Go to our respective websites. You can go to urinyc.org, download the report, You definitely have a lot of information. You remember that Saturday night I talked about? Cancel your Saturday night plans, pick up the report and really learn more about this very important issue. I am so confident in hearing the stories today, working with our staff, working with all of you, working with our Board of Trustees, that as a community, we're going to end domestic and gender-based violence. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you all. What a great set of panelists. Thank you. I don't know, you call it the set, a group. I don't know what the proper terminology for that is, except you are all terrific for walking the walk. Esteemed, it says right here. I thank PetSmart Charities in particular to help make this day happen. And without the dollars to do this, we wouldn't have been able to do this. These types of international thought leadership events cannot happen without financial support. If you need help, contact the hotline. The number is 800-799-SAFE. Type start or text go to the hotline.org for the chat option. For that, go to urinyc.org to learn more about the issue. Don't forget, you can download the just released PALS report as Nat explained. If you're a funder, please contact URI to share your thoughts and to provide financial support to this incredible PALS program. In closing, a special thank you to Brand Live hosting today's event, and especially to Ethan, who talks in my ear and makes me keep almost on time anyway. We want to extend a very special thank you to Rita Garza. Rita, you are incredible. I wish I had a quarter of your energy with Rhythm Strategy Consultancy for developing and managing today's event, which she has done and always does so incredibly well. No one like you, Rita. As always, we have much appreciation and gratitude for the amazing Nat Fields. As someone said here, we wish everyone in their city had a Nat Fields. Nat, maybe you can make that happen. Most of all, I thank all of you for joining us. And I just want to say this. This program saves human lives and saves animal lives. Both. Keeps families and people together. I don't know how many times that was mentioned. Purina has been saying that for a decade now. That's what this is all about. And for all of you watching, I hope you now understand you too can make a difference. I'm Steve Dale.